it's not particularly interesting. I'm just not very good at golf. Is the long and the short of it. Actually, I'm all right at golf, but just today,
That's the intro to the episode now, Robin, by the way.
That's it.
Yeah.
Just not very good at golf. I mean, just etch it wherever it needs to be etched.
Yeah, I've had a co-worker of mine has actually flown over to Scotland to play golf. And I am under no real impression that he's particularly good. But God love him. Like, his buddies are all coming over, like a bucket list type of thing. And they're just playing golf in Scotland. And yeah, it's the weather currently does not look golf friendly. I don't know about you, Robin, but
it was all right, actually. It was all right. I mean, I'd say I have nothing to blame other than my fundamental lack of skill at the sport. So
golf is one of those games where it's, unless you're playing just constantly, you feel like a complete imbecile.
That's exactly it.
If you play sporadically, it just doesn't matter. It's just pot luck, and that's what's infuriating about it.
Yeah, it basically is. I probably play a couple of times a month, I reckon, on average.
That's fairly frequently. You should.
That is very much.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, you
that's
should.
What I mean. I mean, I say I'm all right. I play off 13, so I'm all right.
What, off 13?
Yeah.
Mine and your definition of bad at golf.
No, but that's what I should play to. But today, you can multiply that by a couple.
Because I'll play off 13 on a par 5. So,
I was in danger of that a few times today. So anyway, it's probably enough. Boring.
So wait, Stephen played golf for a living.
Stephen Mitchell played golf for a living. Were you ranked?
He didn't earn any money, but he
he's just married. He's just married to a very wealthy woman who indulged his hobbies. Yeah,
I was a golf professional for
30. Well, how did we not figure this out? This is your ticket, Robin. You could start to,
Yeah, this is it, Stephen. I might message. If we can have some lessons on how to not be an idiot, then that'll be good. But no,
can't help you with that.
No, he cannot help me with that. But yeah. Anyway, there we go. We've discovered something we didn't know today. That's very interesting.
He's probably
more interesting.
He's probably put down the club, Robin.
Yeah, that's probably a good start. But
something you and Fabian Herzler would have in common then, putting down clubs, because that's what it feels like at the moment.
Yeah, it does. That sets the tone wonderfully. Yeah. Doom in the chat. There are 7 wonders of the world. One of them is what the hell is Herzler's tactics? Well, we will be going into that very much today. We have a lot to discuss, and not least the unbelievably bad luck we got throughout the first half yesterday, regardless of tactics, where we had 2 contact injuries that no new physio team on the planet can account for, which is just lovely. Whenever you make all these inroads to try and make things better, you go ahead and get yourself a bunch of injuries. So let's talk about the starting 11 then. Fabian Herzler said that we had a fully fit squad in this league, ready to go, with the exception of March and who's the other one? Who else was out? March
Webster.
And Webster.
Of
course it was.
Yeah.
And we started out yesterday with Verbruggen, Veltman, Van Hecker, Dunk, De Kuiper, Milner, and Hinshelwood as our double pivot. Minte, Ruta, Mitoma, and Welbeck up front. Notably, both Greeks were on the bench. No, just the one Greek, but Watson also. And Baleba was benched as well. Iari also on there. How did you guys feel about really what was out there and how you thought Herzler might attempt to deal with this team at Bournemouth?
I guess I'll go first. The Milner Hinshelwood pivot's curious, isn't it? Imagine playing next to someone who's 19 years age difference from you. What a weird thing to happen. I was actually quite happy to see Milner in there, just obviously based on the chance that we got a penalty. And his influence on the pitch is obviously generally a good one. I think we were all very happy to see Ruta back and playing in that role. The biggest shock was no spot for Gruder for me. And I couldn't really, I know we could probably talk about Baleba, but I think we've all been in agreement that either Baleba's been off it or not entirely fit so far this season. So you can sort of understand him not playing him. But the Gruder one feels like every time he gets to a point where it's okay, this is it. Gruder, he's doing it. No, you're not playing, mate. Don't worry about it. It sort of feels like Baleba under De Zerbi a little bit, where it's like, doesn't matter what you do, mate. Nah, you're going to sit on that bench, and I'll bring you on when I want to. So that was my main takeaway from the lineup.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think it comes in terms of trying to fit Ruter and Gruder into the starting 11. I mean, we've debated this on a couple of episodes, and we've debated it in our WhatsApp group as well. You have to make this decision, which is if you play Ruter up front on his own and get Gruder into the lineup, there's a decision which is, do you lose basically two aspects of the game? You don't get the best out of Ruter, and also you don't get the best version of a number 9 because he doesn't fundamentally have the game for that. So I appreciate from Herzler's point of view, it's really difficult. I thought on the basis that half an hour of the Man City game, it did work having them both on the pitch. I thought he might have gone for it from the start today, but he just doesn't seem to want to sacrifice Ruter in that 10 role, which I can kind of see because he was our best, sort of had the most amount of energy of everyone. So it is a really difficult proposition, because otherwise he's played a lot of football on the right, but he's not going to get ahead of Minte at the moment either. So where do you make it work? What is curious is that, Welbeck's not had a particularly stellar start to the season.
He's been shit, yeah.
Simas isn't ready yet for Premier League football based on his little bit of minutes yesterday. So he's left with this pure decision, which is, do you basically play Ruter out of position to get Gruder in? Like, do you know what I mean? Like the balance of, are you losing more by not having Ruter in his best position versus having Gruder on the pitch? It's a difficult balance, isn't it?
But Josh, how many more times do you watch that game without deciding I'm not going to do that one again then?
I mean, at the end of the day, for me, we've just seen for 30 minutes that actually sorry, my phone's buzzing off. But I feel like we've seen quite clearly here that Ruter and Gruder are both actually pretty bloody good and can thrive off of each other if they're both being brought on as false nines in this weird, you go, I stay, or we both go together, or we both drop back and build together and focus out wide, right? We watched it for 30 minutes and it was insanely effective. And it seemed to make Gruder even more buoyant because he was allowed to go forward and not feel guilty for it. And it actually is what led to the goal, right? Was him being absolutely delighted to go ahead and be a 9 when he shouldn't be a 9. It seems that those two have already discovered a way in 30 minutes against one of the best teams on the planet to work out how to play together up front with our two first choice wingers. So to me, when you are choosing not to play those two together, and you are choosing to go ahead with Danny Welbeck, who, don't get me wrong, last season was obviously I think it was his best season ever, right? Technically. And I don't think any of us have a bad word to say about Danny Welbeck at all. But the fact of the matter is, he started horribly. He looks every inch his age, and he is technically the worst player on the pitch for Brighton this season. Under every statistical rating, he is the guy bottom of the list. So if you're going to let someone get cut, why would you not try them both up top together against a team like Bournemouth that are also very fluid, and just try and keep people on their toes? We didn't. We went out there with much the same as we've been doing lately, with a very bizarre midfield two that we saw for all about 45 seconds before poor Jack got cropped, and it looks like ankle ligament damage, and he had a boot up to his knee, which was lovely. So That was a fantastic first 60 seconds. A lot of fans talking about the starting 11, and then the starting 11 was immediately chopped up because one of our brightest prospects, English brightest prospects, gets himself crocked almost immediately. So
we didn't mention, I guess Weaver was the other guy that was out injured, right?
that's right.
Because you have to expect that. I think he starts every game at this point, right? Weaver, he's shown enough where he plays. Not that you could argue that Veltman was one of the best players on the pitch yesterday, but I feel like Weaver does play. It might be a case now that he sort of doesn't really have too much of a choice but to play Weaver in the pivot role now.
What you mean, play him in the position?
Play him in his actual role, yeah. Which is going to be Herzler. I don't know if he's going to want to do that. I don't know if he's going to like it. It's anti-Herzler. So, yeah. The Welbeck thing, I think we mentioned after the City game and after what we saw with Oxford. The thought was you sort of have to start Ruder at this point. And Ruder is such an influence whenever he plays. You're like, well, I have to start him. So coming into this game, I fully anticipated Danny Welbeck wasn't going to start. So I was quite surprised by that. What's going to be really telling is how we line up against Spurs. Because I think the Spurs game is going to be important in the sense that we're going to begin to understand how wedded Herzler is to playing certain players in certain positions and how up he is for moving things around and creating a bit more fluidity like you talked about, Josh. I don't know what he's going to do because every time I feel like we try and guess what Herzler is going to do, he does something slightly weird with a weird kink in it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
It's going to be a very interesting team selection. Obviously, some of it forced on him by a couple of injuries. We assume Ferdy will start at fullback.
We're all over the place here, but I want to say you didn't like what you saw from Ferdy, whereas I quite did. I quite liked the look of him. Yeah,
I thought he did pretty well.
I think it's more probably rustiness. Like I really feel for the guy because he's kind of been so stop-start, hasn't he, in his Albion career with that long injury. And it seems like he hasn't quite... He's obviously been fit since the start of pre-season, but he hasn't quite been trusted yet to go properly in from the start.
No choice now.
I don't know what it is. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's really difficult because you're making... Yeah, now the decision is kind of made because you look at it and you go, who else is going to play left back? I mean, like Hinchelwood is filled in there. He's the injured one. Weave, is he going to put Weaver at left back?
Don't put that.
Boskagley
to the universe.
Boskagley's is more, I don't know. Like all logic points to the fact that you start Ferdy at left back. But I think we can't rely on that being the 11, right?
I mean, the expectation is you put your best players in their best positions, and Herzler is not someone who wants to put his best players in his best positions. He'd rather put players wherever he fancies putting them and then pretend that we played well when we didn't in the media interviews. I think it's just like he just watches a different game to everybody else. So
it is funny. I mean, I know we are going massively off topic, but I was thinking about it this morning and I thought that idea of you play players outside of their best position. But normally when managers do it, it's because they're trying to get a very specific system to work, right? We've seen it with Amorim at Man United. Like he's wedded to that system and he's going to put players into certain roles in that system, even if that's not how they're set up to play. Like you said, Josh, in this instance, it doesn't seem like he's doing that to fit to a specific system. He just seems to be doing it for I don't know what. It's quite strange. It's quite difficult to analyze from that respect.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Jack goes down, not great, but I thought all things considered, actually, Ayari comes straight on. I didn't think that first 15, 16 minutes of the game was actually too bad. I thought we played pretty good. We looked all right. We looked pretty threatening down the right, especially. I thought Minte started well. Ruta looked absolutely buzzing out there to be playing in that 10 role. I thought he linked up play really well. And then, things went from bad to just unjust on 17 minutes where Semenyo left a shoulder in pretty intentionally and shoved De Kuyper pretty hard. I don't think Semenyo's intent was to smash him against the boards and cause an injury, but it was most certainly to shove him, right? Like, I think we can all establish that, like, he absolutely left a shoulder in to put him on the floor. And it resulted in De Kuyper going off, injured, shortly, fully off. But in the short term, it was just for that 30 seconds. And with the Albion a man short, Bournemouth immediately and ruthlessly attacked down that flank and promptly scored. For me, like, above everything else, because the strike was a good one, like, fine, but like, it's just infuriating to see, like, what I felt was a pretty blatant, like, cynical foul not only go totally unpunished, but be quite directly rewarded with a goal. And then obviously, like, we're already down with him booted in the face by De Kuyper, then being forced off 4 minutes later, I think it was. From then on, like, regardless of how well we started, like, in that first 15 minutes, it felt like a cursed day already, didn't it? A goal down and two players who you would imagine to be in the 11 pretty constantly, if not around the 11 pretty constantly, both injured with contact injuries that the club simply cannot do anything about.
Yeah, I was watching the replay back a little bit, and then also Phil Foden scores at the same time as well. You see De Kuyper sprinting back into shot after, like, who even was it for Bournemouth that pinged it in?
Alex Scott.
So Mitoma was basically back defending in place of De Kuyper, which, to give him his credit, Mitoma's normally really good defensively, and he's a half-assed attempt. He misses the tackle, and then there's some cover, but it's lazy covering. Van Hecker sprints out, and the ball just goes around him. That goal, as you say, just doesn't happen if De Kuyper's in position, because there's another man there to grab the ball. 2 injuries in the space of the first 20 minutes, is, as you said, messes with your whole substitutions plan. We talked about how important Herzler's substitutions are and the way he wants to move stuff about at certain points in the second half. That messed with that whole game plan. It's also one of those goals, though, that you shouldn't... Was it a good strike? Yes. It shouldn't have gone in. It went between bodies. It's a really unfortunate one. So I agree with you. It felt like one of those games where you're away from home. You've got 2 players injured. You just let in a goal, and this is going to be an uphill battle. And I mean, it sort of was. That, I think the most frightening thing for me, Robin, was it didn't... I feel like we got 2 lots of 10 minutes from our team where it looked like they could be bothered to try and make something out of this game. At the end of the first half and at the start of the second half. And I think we were tricked coming out at the start of the second half. So, hold on. What's he said at half time? This looks like a different... And then they just did nothing for the most part.
Yeah, it is, exactly. And it was that classic getting the equaliser, which, yeah, was certainly against the run of play from the first half. Great cross, a pretty straightforward header. And then, as you said, we had that 10 minutes where I thought we were going to get another one. Like, we just were all over them, and we were attacking really, really effectively. And then, of course, it's the classic. We've not seen it in the Albion playbook for a while. We know it's there, sitting in the Rolodex, just the innate ability just to pass the ball straight to an opposition player. We've not seen it for a while. It was sort of like when you, in your head, when you think, we've had a really nice summer. It'll be really nice. Like, we'll have those cozy winter evenings. And then you get there and it's just, you're like, oh yeah, I remember this. Let's not do that. And it was just, yeah, it was classic Albion, just to not take advantage of that 10 minutes where we were playing pretty well. But I think the point you make is really interesting, which is and this has been something under Herzler that we've seen time and again, is that we cannot put together a prolonged period of play. I mean, even the Man City game, we had that for half an hour. First 60 minutes of that game, we were not really doing much. And there's probably, we could find examples of it from last season as well. It's really frustrating. And I don't say I'm not remotely clever enough to be able to analyze why that might be happening consistently, but it does seem to be the hallmark of this Albion team.
Well, I mean, I think it's because the tactics we have are both one-dimensional and boring. To be honest, like, and at certain phases of play, like they're going to work for a little while because the players we have are good enough to cause a problem with anybody. But I'm starting to believe that Herzler ball is simply pump the ball out to the wings and rely on Mitoma or Minte or Ruta if he's there as excellent players to create something magical and get a goal. Outside of that, I'm still like a year in. Like I don't know what it is outside of pump the ball out wide. I know I said like the Huppier thing, but like I'm the only difference I'm seeing between these two teams is the fact that our fullbacks are not allowed to be suicidally stupid under Herzler. Like I'm at this point, it seems totally devoid of any tactical nous at all, other than lob the ball out wide and hope, which is exactly what Huppier was playing.
Like, and also, I mean, they didn't do that at St. Pauli either. Like I was talking to, I was talking to some Pauli fan yesterday at the thing I went to, and he just said he's watched quite a lot of our games, and he doesn't recognise the football that they had at St. Pauli. He said they very rarely played like the long balls that we've seen. You're right on the wing play. That was a big thing of their, like, and I think even when we was first appointed, we looked at a few screenshots, and it was the hallmark was you have your wingers high and wide, and a lot of chances do come from crosses, but they were not playing like these kind of long balls. So I don't know what it is. I mean, I think last season you could make the argument that perhaps he didn't have the personnel or the set roles to be able to play that system that he was wedded to at St. Pauli, which was 3 at the back. And we've talked about this a few times. You'd argue this season, there's no reason that he couldn't be playing that. He's gone out and signed Boskagli. So you've now got, and you've got Koppler there as well. So you've now got the players there to be able to play that 3 at the back. He's got the extra midfielders in there if he wants to play that, that kind of quarterback, third, centre back being actually a midfielder. So I don't see now that he has any reason not to go to that system that was successful, unless he's decided that he just doesn't think it would translate into the Premier League. That's all I can think at this point, is that he's decided it's not going to work, but he doesn't have anything to fall back on. I know I've seen a few people talk about how, the next evolution of kind of football tactics and systems is actually not to have a tactical system, which is sort of how we've won the games that we have recently, which is that Man City game. We just sort of overwhelmed them with energy for half an hour. But that doesn't work. Maybe that is the answer to why we can't do it for 90 minutes, because that innately isn't going to work for 90 minutes. Like hardly any teams can overwhelm the opposition for 90 minutes with superior energy levels. Maybe that's it.
I think you're both right. There's this constant sense with this team under Herzler that something's just wrong. There's something just off with it, and it doesn't gel consistently. And we saw it all last season, where we had these fits and starts of play and runs of games, which started to look like there was a football team, and then a switch flipped and they looked clueless again. And that's the trouble with this team, where it feels like there's never a level of consistent play. And every team has bad games. Obviously, we've seen that. I mean, you look at Liverpool this season, how jammy have they been in every game? And they've got what is close to the Harlem Globetrotter team at this point in time. So the teams always go through these little processes and there's little downtimes, but we feel incredibly susceptible to that under Herzler. And it's almost like, how good are the good times under Herzler? Because the good times under De Zerbi, hate to bring his name up, but they were tippy top. They were you watched a De Zerbi game and you went, wow. Look, that is some football. We understand what they're doing, and boy, did it work. Sometimes it didn't work, but boy, when it worked, it worked. Under Herzler, it just feels like when it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and when it works, it works. The last piece I'll say is also, I think the Man City game. Man City were, I don't know what they were doing defensively. There's been a lot of sort of smarter people than me doing the analysis on how they set up defensively and the way that they jumped up and pressed. But for the most part, they gave us a way to win that game, Man City. I don't know whether it was us. Yes, we put in a lot of effort and energy, but I think it was more Man City being stupid than it was Brighton being fantastic. That's our only 3 points so far this year.
And they do that quite often, right? Under this newer Pep, like as they've evolved, they've always been prone to like doing too much, but like it's something that they're more prone to now more than ever is the doing something stupid to cost them a game.
Well, they just left a massive gap at centre back. I mean, that's like, it's fairly fundamentally bad defending, isn't it? If you can let the opposition number 10, who is not the most physically, dominating specimen in the game, if you can just let him ghost through the middle of defence pretty much untouched, then that's fairly basic levels of Premier League defending, I'd have thought. I'm not trying to rewrite, I say I'm with you, Adam, it's sort of not trying to sort of rewrite the victory too much, but I think the way I think about it all is that I can't see that we've evolved, like from when he started in the role to now. I can't see that we've evolved from something into something else. I still kind of feel like you'll get the same. Like you could watch a Herzler game from one of the first few, and you could watch a Herzler game from now, and you know what I mean. Like I think you'd expect there to be, if he's building towards something or he has a particular idea in his head, you would expect to see not necessarily a fully linear progression towards it, but you'd expect to see we have moved from there to where we are now. I know, again, to bring up, De Zerbi, you saw that because the first few games under him, it took us a while to win, but you could see that he was sort of feeling his way into it. And then you ended up with a system. You go, okay, fine. Now he's worked out who all the players are, what their attributes are. He's worked out who will fit into a system, etc., etc. You see it. With this, I don't see what he's aiming at. I don't see what the ideal Herzler performance looks like. Like I said a minute ago, maybe there isn't such a thing. Maybe his thing is to be so fluid that actually it's impossible to say what the ideal performance is. Maybe it's just beating who's in front of you on any given day. Maybe that's it.
Should we also have counterpoint, Josh, with the fact is probably shouldn't have conceded the Fulham goal, right? I think we can all agree with that. So we should have had 3 points there. We beat Man City. And in this game, if it wasn't for the stupidity with the Kuiper and the injury and the foul that wasn't, and the Lewis Dunk pass and the Van Hecker leg, like these are scenarios where you're feeling quite comfortable. We were nowhere near as bad as the result showed against Everton. Like, stat-wise, it wasn't an awful performance. Fulham were unfortunate. But there's a different narrative here that unfolds. And you could also say that against Bournemouth, he's not playing the two best players of last season. So Balaba's out for reasons semi-unknown. João Pedro's gone. In my opinion, for the most part, they were our two best players last year. If you remove a Van Hecker from the equation, I don't think Matoma necessarily was up there with them. And your spine of your team yesterday was Danny Welbeck, James Milner, and Lewis Dunk. That was the spine of your team. And a Welbeck that hasn't found his footing this year, a Lewis Dunk who fundamentally cost us the game yesterday, and a James Milner who is about to be put out to pasture. So is it fair on him to judge him for this, given the fact that he has a weaker team than he had last year. Josh, what do you think?
I think that when we filled out the team sheet, Fabian Herzler filled out Danny Welbeck's name. He filled out James Milner's name, and he filled out Lewis Dunk's name, as opposed to Coppola's name, as opposed to Boscagli's name, as opposed to Ayari's name, as opposed to like anybody like Ruta and Gruder together's name. Like we saw at work. Like to me, he's the one selecting the squad, so that tells me that that's the best team he thinks he has. If he doesn't think those other players are good enough, that's a problem, obviously, right? Like if we don't think that they're there yet. If Baleba is injured and can't play 90 minutes, like why is he traveling at all? Like we should be focusing on getting him fully fit, not playing him for 30 minutes and risking re-aggravating something. I don't know why we're doing that. We saw De Zerbi do that, and look what happened under him when he was kind of bringing in people too soon. Estepinian almost lost a year of his career because of that stupidity. We have plenty of options that he could do to try and be a bit bold, and he's not doing it. Set pieces has been a problem under Herzler the whole time, and we conceded a set piece late. That's his fault. That's his staff that's setting up those set pieces and defending those set pieces. And the goal yesterday and the player that fundamentally cost us the game as someone that every single fan of this club has identified 18 months ago, starting to lose it, right? Like January, February under De Zerbi, we were like, geez, Dunk looks a different player than what he looked 6 months prior, right? Like we've all watched it happen. He's signed 2 players to, you would assume, replace him, and he's not had the balls to play him. And he is choosing to play James Milner in the middle of the park instead of Yasin Ayari, instead of Carlos Baleba, if he's fit or not fit. So I get those, like, if we had a little bit different going on, like for the Everton game, like I think we were always screwed because it was the opener, like, and the history is not on the away side for any away side. Like, and I said that at the time, like, I don't think there's a single team in the Premier League that would have gone to Everton that week and won. Not City, not anyone. And definitely not Liverpool, right? Because like the one you'd say is like, oh, Liverpool, but not against Everton. So like, I think there's a single team that goes to Everton and wins. And Fulham, we lost because it's our fault. We played Bournemouth and we lost because of our fault, right? Like it's the manager's decisions, and like he's got to sit on them. Because when we win and we beat City, we're all praising his subs and saying it went really well. When like in reality, on 61 minutes, like we all thought the podcast was going to be bloody dire because we played like shit for 60 minutes. Like we played terribly, and then we brought on the subs, we brought the energy, and we looked fantastic. Like my main concern is as we watch this team this year, we look worse than last year, and the argument that we have a worse team is probably fair, right? Like with, as you say, like we've sold João Pedro and Baleba isn't fit or able to be playing.
Attacking, we are
especially so,
worse.
yeah.
Defensively, you could argue there's more depth there, and it's a better defensive unit. I think that's
My concern is that actually I worry that what we're seeing this year is exactly what Herzler wants. Like this is Herzler's tactics. Like it is just beat who's in front of us with like a fluid tactical outfit that never has a true like identity other than pump the ball out to the wings and hope that 2 excellent wingers can make a difference. And I worry that we have officially, or Herzler especially, has officially spent all the pennies in the bank from the identity we built up under Potter and De Zerbi, and all that's gone. And now what we're seeing is exactly what we're going to get under Herzler. 4 points from 4 games, from games we got 12 from last season, and a team that more and more frequently this year, this like under the first 4 games, like players don't look like they know what they're doing. Like they don't look like they know where they should be, especially defensively at times. they look very lethargic, like crazy unfit. Some of these players, like to me, like I just can't believe how slow some of them look. They look
The Van Hecker leg was.
They don't look like they know what they're doing half the time, and these are elite footballers. They know what they're doing under a tactical.
But all we
system,
hear
right?
about
like,
is how is intensity, right? That's like his buzzword is intensity.
Well, we're not intense either, are we?
But we don't see it. So, like, are they? Do we see it? I guess maybe he's seeing something different in training.
In the first half yesterday, they had 6 shots, 2 on target. We had one shot. All first half. They had 54% possession. Their passing was better than us. Their dribbling was better than us. They dispossessed us more, so their pressing and intensity was better than us. Everything they did was better than us. And the second half, outside of that kind of really good start to it, like it wasn't much different, right? Like we had a little bit more of the ball once they went 2-1 up, but like that's kind of just how a game ebbs and flows, right? And we still only ended up yesterday with 2 shots on target all day, and under every metric possible, we were the worst team. Like we absolutely deserved to lose yesterday. Like under every statistical metric you can find, we were outplayed by Bournemouth, no doubt about it. And we then had our manager come out and tell us that everything that the eye test and the stats say was wrong. And actually, we played really well. We could have and probably should have won, and we were the better team just about everywhere, and it was just a bit of bad luck. Well, I've heard that before with all of our bad managers.
Well,
to be honest,
this is the other piece to this, right? Is Iraola would be welcomed at pretty much any elite club at this point. He was touted for various jobs. If someone told you tomorrow, let's say Manchester City, as at time of recording, beat Man United 7-0, and Amorim is finally time, no one would bat an eyelid if Iraola went to Manchester United. No one. If Herzler went to Manchester United or somewhere elite, some people would be like, well, who's paid off who here? Iraola is very clearly a lot further ahead in his career and his expertise as a manager and a tactician than Herzler is. So we have to keep that in mind. We don't have the finished article as a manager. There was never going to be the case. And you see that with the fact that if you look at the lineup that Bournemouth put out, I think maybe out of every single player, I'd maybe take one player off their starting 11, Semenyo. Outside of that, for me, we outgunned them in every single position. We should have had something in that game. And the final point on this on Herzler, because then I guess we'll shut up because it's not going to get us anywhere. The reason you bring in a young manager is you want to have something exciting there. If not, like we could have gone out and got some old fart in that plays standard tactics, nothing crazy happens, keep us consistent in the Premier League and finish somewhere between 7th and 13th every single year. We could have absolutely gone and done that. But you bring in Herzler because you potentially think I could have a genius on my hands that can take this club to the next level. We're not seeing any of the genius. That's the problem. We're not seeing anything that would go, I want to hire that 30-something-year-old.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think allied to that, I'm going to say I've probably been boringly banging this drum for quite a long time. One of the main reasons that we have probably enjoyed the Albion over the last few years is that by and large, we have been fun to watch, right? I think that's fair comment. The last 15 months, I'll be completely honest, have bored me to death watching the Albion. And people are probably going to get annoyed and think, you haven't really given him a chance. But this is a kind of this is a personal reflection on it. But I don't look forward to games in the same way that I have done for the last few years under Herzler. And I'm fully aware that probably that's because we were slightly spoiled under the best of De Zerbi that we've talked about. And this is not a rose-tinted thing about De Zerbi, right? Because as we've said, the last few months of De Zerbi were horrific in all sorts of ways. So it's not to say that everything under him was brilliant, but I think slightly spoiled by the high point of that. And now I say I don't generally enjoy watching us play. And I know that doesn't have, that's not some grand, it's not designed to have some grand impact on the wider scale. But for me personally, I don't enjoy watching us. And obviously the main reason we watch football, I'm sure all of us, is you want to enjoy watching your team play. Yeah, you want to see them win, but we know we're not going to win, every week. But we've sort of come to expect, and I think the sort of the noises that we've had from from Tony Bloom, etc., and the appointments that he's made, I think we can infer that he also wants a team that is exciting to watch. And I don't think we're getting it right now in any guise.
I mean, we're not, are we? Like it really is just like as I said, like it feels like we are. It's pretty much exactly what we saw under that last couple of months under De Zerbi, but like we're losing even that piece of identity where like everything was still crap because it seemed like the wind had gone from our sails under him. But at least we knew what we were trying to do. At this point, I do not see anything that we're trying to do other than segueing back onto the game, ping the ball out to the wingers and hope for something good. And we did get it right after half time, right? With Minte setting up a goal for a beauty of a cushioned header, by the way, from Mitoma at the back post. Something he's starting to do quite a lot over the couple of years we've had him, hasn't he? And he's done once or twice before. And to me, like I've got nothing but like good things to say about Minte this season so far, to be fair to him. We all saw the preseason he had last year and then the huge drop off, right? Like he just the pace of the Premier League knocked him for 6. And then he came on in that kind of January during that FA Cup run, and all of a sudden he found his feet and he got better and better. And we saw that preseason again this year, and you thought, oh no, I hope he doesn't do it again. And like he hasn't. Like he's been one of our best players in this four game run so far. And I thought he played really well again yesterday, and got the assist, and it was a great cross, honestly, as well. And he started whipping in quite a few really nice balls. And at 1-1, like you're hoping to turn it around, but ultimately, like we kind of just went back into what we were doing in the first half, which was overall not much at all. And then obviously Lewis Dunk's wayward pass, which was just baffling. I don't know what he was doing. I don't know where he was looking. And then of course Van Hecker kind of was just left one-on-one and panicked, as you've seen lots of times in football. Sticks a leg out as like a last-ditch attempt to try and get the ball. Never does. Definitely a penalty. Stone wall.
Did you see this on Sky? It's a little random, but on Sky Sports, they were absolutely hitting the roof about how it definitely wasn't a penalty.
No, it looked pretty clear to me.
Van Hecker did not even complain.
Yeah, they were said it was like one of the worst recent decisions. Mike Dean was going off on one about how it definitely wasn't a penalty. And I was like, it seems the most blatant thing. Sticks out a leg, gets nowhere near the ball. Doesn't clatter him, but clearly trips him.
That penalty gets given
bizarre. Yeah,
8 to 9 times out of 10, in my opinion.
Yeah,
and it's always one of those annoying ones. You're like, oh, of course you did it. But just don't put the bloody leg out there. That's how you don't get the penalty against you.
Like you say, he's telegraphed that he's going to cut inside as well. Like it's almost like it's like painting by numbers, isn't it? He knows exactly where he's going to go, but he still follows it with the leg.
It was a frustrating one, but I do want to go back and I want to talk a bit of positive about the goal. Josh, you mentioned it. I think we all know though that little scoop pass from Ruta, as you watched Minter running on the right hand side, was top draw, world class pass. And that's the difference Ruta makes. That's him in the 10 spot, doing what he can do and making things happen. And by the way, those moments where a player does something special to create something that otherwise is just simply not there, those are the things that we've seen really few and far between from this team so far this year. Those little moments of magic. And I think if I cast my mind back to, was it last season against Bournemouth, at Bournemouth, and we had some incredible bits of play between João Pedro and I think it was Welbeck Ruta was playing there as well, and it was the game Baleba got sent off, and we still won, right, if I remember correctly. And there were some amazing little triangles of play.
Yeah, Matoma scored, didn't he?
Matoma.
It was that little pass through. It was those two linked up, and then Matoma was left like one-on-one and just swept it into the corner, I think.
It was Matoma, Welbeck, Ruta, and
Pedro
as your front four. And you literally watched all of them just swap places. Even Mitoma came inside every now and again, and Pedro went like it was the most fluid front four you could ask for, and it looked phenomenal. And that was a Herzler side, by the way. So
well, exactly.
Everyone said no, but to your point, Adam, saying Iraola's further along. Well, he beat him last season, with a really fluid, with a really great looking bit of play, and it's well, how much of this? Exactly like I'm saying, how much of that was cashed in on the identity we'd already formed under Potter and De Zerbi?
The problem is it goes back to the other piece, even though I'm undermining that particular Iraola point, it goes back to the other part where you've got a João Pedro size gap in this team, and you still don't truly know how to play without him, even though he had patches of injury. Because when João Pedro wasn't playing last year or wasn't playing his best, you had someone like Danny Welbeck step up and have that amazing season that he has. We've now got no João Pedro, and let's not. I know it's easy. We can hate on João Pedro now because he's gone and whatever, and some of his comments that he made. This is a guy that is quite potentially going to be scoring goals in the Champions League fairly comfortably. João Pedro is a very, 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 very good player. You've got Danny Welbeck who's just not doing his thing this year, and you've got Ruta who's been out of the side and injured and just come back. You just don't have that setup at the moment. You don't have those players playing where they were at that point last season. But that's how you're missing those little moments and those opportunities. And I really don't think that Ruta scoop pass is one of the very few that we've seen where you've seen interplay between some of the players to bring the best out of them, create an opportunity that wasn't there. But it was a great run by Minte, a great ball. What was interesting tactically, and I would imagine this was intentional if we want to give Herzler some praise yesterday, was almost always we funnel everything down the left-hand side of the pitch. Almost always. We were more wedded to the right side yesterday against Bournemouth, which is fairly unusual, but you could tell, right? It felt like the ball went to Minte a lot, and we were looking for Minte a lot. And Truffert, I don't know how to say his name. It's French, so Truffert probably. He was getting absolutely rinsed, that left back for Bournemouth. So I would imagine Herzler has probably intentionally gone, let's just give this guy absolute hell. The slightly more alarming thing is that outside of the goal, I don't think we didn't see much from Mitoma at all. And that's your other piece, and maybe a theme for the season, is that when are we going to get that version of Mitoma back that we know is possible, that really top tier winger that creates stuff and scores a bunch of goals. And I know he scored a goal yesterday, but outside of the header, he was fairly anonymous unless I've completely blacked out and forgotten something.
No, it's fair. But then I think that the fact that we don't see that Mitoma as regularly as we'd like is the reason why he's still here.
Yeah, there is that piece. That's the way we've been able to sort of retain him to a certain extent. But yeah, I don't know. I thought the goal was fantastic. We just didn't have enough of those types of moments. That felt like the only one. And Josh, it goes back to what we said. What was it? 2 shots on target? A whole 2?
2.
Yeah, 1.5 really. I wouldn't even say one was.
But we did have. Was it Welbeck that when the ball came in from a corner, it bounced back out and he sort of shanked it, and it just was like an inch from the post to the.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I think that's the half-ish, but
that was close.
Yeah,
I don't know either. Minte hit the side netting twice, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll go back to the fact that I feel we are a badly coached team. And I said this, I feel like I said this in November of last year, that I identified this even when I was still very much on give the guy a chance to get his shit together. It felt like we were a badly coached team, and it feels like we still are. Looking at the penalty shout here, despite that absolute hospital pass that Dunk played, When they hit us then consequently on the break, we were 5-on-2, fellas. There were 5 Brighton players back and
but it was
2
always
Bournemouth
happening.
players. But what does that say about those 5? Why are there 5 players all looking at the ball and all surrounding 16? And number 9, Evan Nilsson, is left all alone. And the ball just gets passed out to him. And the only person who covers him in that 5 is the one that's the second furthest away. So at some point, Dunkayari and Milner have not bothered to even track over with Evan Nilsson and left Van Hecker to cover almost the entire length of his 18-yard box to then cover Evan Nilsson. Like, that's bad coach. Like, that's a badly coached football team. Like, you're 5-on-2 and you concede a penalty and lose the game because of that. Like, that's just a fact. Like, that's on video. And like, that's just what it is. So I don't know. Like, I'm bored of watching him and I'm bored of talking about it. Like, it just feels like there is no vision at all for this team. And I feel like it's fair to have given him a year and a bit. And like, I don't see anything now, and I didn't see anything then. Like, but I figured we'd figure it out, and we have.
The interesting thing as well is that obviously we had the other German coach come in January, right? Who was plucked from the German FA.
Yeah.
Who was supposed to be the guy to come in and provide a bit of experience and a bit of assistance. And that doesn't seem to have. Obviously, we're not necessarily party to who does what in terms of the coaching set up during any given week, but it certainly doesn't seem to have moved the needle on anything at this point.
At the end of the day, he's going nowhere, right? Like, he isn't going anywhere. Like, Herzler is staying. Like, we watched this with Huppier, who was obviously a far worse manager because he was just so stupid and never got a job ever again. But like he literally never worked in football again, despite being like a world-class centre half for his entire life. And he was that bad of a manager, he never got another chance. But like, he's not going anywhere because it took Huppier basically forcing a resignation into Tony's hands at Christmas. Tony turned it down. Like, it's well documented that he was not going to sack him, and he turned down his initial resignation at the time. So, like, he's not going anywhere. Herzler isn't going anywhere.
Do you think the difference? I was going to say, do you think the difference, like the fact that Tony has been unusually specific in saying that the target for this season is to get back into Europe? Do you think, to any extent at all, that backs him into a corner slightly if things continue on the same trajectory? Because to your point, I mean, like, when that Hippier thing happened, we were in that kind of middling championship phase where we'd had a couple of cracks at the playoffs by then. So the trajectory was we're aiming for the Premier League, but we weren't one of those. It wasn't overt. There was no overt like, okay, we need to be going up. Like, we probably did, like, in the behind the scenes, financially, we probably needed to get out into the Premier League quickly, but there was no like, this is our immediate target. Whereas now they've very much gone, we want to be back into Europe as soon as possible. If you're an owner who says that, and then you have a team that's, you get to sort of, I don't know, back end of November, beginning of December, right? Hypothetically, and you're sitting in 15th. Like, those two things, they don't square up, do they? So if you've come out and made those statements, does the fact that he said that not lead you down a certain path if things carry on?
Do you not, a simple question, right? It's just yes or no question. Do you think we would have been relegated under Sami Huppier if we'd have kept him all year? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Because we were in the bottom three. We were in the bottom 3 when he was sacked.
Yeah.
And
we would have done.
He still wasn't going to sack him. He had to resign. So I don't think it actually makes a difference at all, to be honest. I think that as long as we're not 20th, I think he's not going to get rid of him, because I think Tony is a fabulous man, right? Like, there's not a single bad word you can say about him other than he has shown a little bit of a stubborn streak when things don't seem to be working out with one of his managerial choices. And he's going to keep going regardless because he's going to back the man he's selected because the data tells him he should.
You know what's terrifying? There's something that just sits in the depths of my gut that tells me that Graham Potter will be a Brighton manager again.
Oh, don't.
And I don't know why, but there's something that tells me. I can just see the stars aligning. He ends up having to walk away from West Ham or whatever it is. And then, Herzler's on his way out. And suddenly it's like, well, hold on. We've had all this issue. Graham Potter made us. We played some good football under Potter, right? If I remember some of that. Yeah, maybe. And in he comes. Gallant. The White Knight. Graham Potter on his steed. But anyway, let's be honest. Yesterday, we could talk about tactics, we talk about whatever. Lewis Dunk cost us getting a point at Bournemouth, which wouldn't have been the worst thing. And you look at, you say, okay, playing City and then Bournemouth away, 4 points. You go, yeah, great, all right, things are going pretty well. I'd say that's good. But it was shades of Roma, Lukaku, Lewis Dunk there. We also saw earlier on in the first half, right? 30 minutes in, he got his yellow card because he was just completely outpaced.
If that was more central, that's red, straight red, easy peasy. He's very lucky that was out wide and Evan Nilsson pushed wider, because if he cut in, we're cooked. We're down to 10 again, second time. Bournemouth in a row. Because that was a straight red offence if he was going in, not out, because that was absolutely last man.
Yeah, I mean, and this is, we defended Dunk last podcast, talking about how he's actually been performing really well this season so far. That was before we were pushed incredibly high up and he just passed the ball to a Bournemouth player. So, and then we saw him get incredibly outpaced in the first half. So you sort of question yourself then is, all right, we're back to this conversation again. And we are. How long does he persist here with not playing one of the players of the season for PSV and in the Eredivisie last year in Boscagli, an up-and-coming Italian defender that we just signed up? How long do you go with this process?
It all just feels like, and I actually said this 2 episodes ago, I think, this just feels exactly the same as last season with Everton and Sean Dyche. It just feels like the same things are happening, that they were starting hopeful, right, we've made loads of good, interesting signings. We've got a lot of depth in places we didn't have. And I remember coming home from that Everton game, even though it was week 1 of the season, and the fans were already why are none of our new signings playing, but players that we think are past it are? Why are none of these things being changed? Why do we look like we look less of a coach team this year than last year? We're having the same conversations.
Yeah,
now. And the only problem is an old club manager came in, so your Potter theory's scary in that one.
See, it can happen. It can.
The only thing is, to the new signings point, Bournemouth signed an 18-year-old from the Serbian league on deadline day who was thrust straight in yesterday and looked pretty decent. You had
because they've got no one else.
Yeah, but you got it's just this kind of Premier League ready thing, which is surely does it not become a self-fulfilling thing? Because the longer you leave someone before giving them a chance, the more difficult it is for them to then come in, because the pressure's higher, the season's further down the line. Mathematically, you've got less games in the season. I mean, it becomes when is someone Premier League ready? Obviously, it's different levels, but Voltemada's been at Newcastle for 4 days or whatever it is, comes in, gets thrust straight in, scores the winner. I'm not suggesting Simas would do the same, but there doesn't seem to be a reluctance necessarily at other clubs to actually play the players that you've brought in to do a specific role.
If Newcastle had Danny Welbeck, they wouldn't have even signed that kid. That's the difference. No, I mean it. That was an absolute reach to do that. The amount of money they paid for that kid, he could end up being an absolute world beater, but they overpaid because they were desperate.
But it's kind of you could see it if you take the Dunk example. I don't know, he was decent against Manchester City. He had one of his best games of recent times, but it's not as if you've got players who are putting in stellar performances every week and keeping other players on the bench. There are positions that we've got where, I mean, like if we get to the Spurs game, right? And let's say, for argument's sake, Boskagli is in ahead of Dunk. I don't think there's any Albion fans sitting around there going, "Oh, that's harsh to drop him." You know what I mean? Like, there's a different, like, it's entirely different if you make a decision when someone is giving you, if someone's making it really difficult for you to pick a new signing in the team, that's completely fine and expected. But we've got someone who is not top of their game, and yet you're not putting in someone who, on paper, has the experience to potentially slot into the Premier League. I find that a bit bizarre.
Nobody says a single word about Seamas if we bought him and Welbeck starts how he finished and played last season, right?
Yeah.
I don't think any of us mentioned
Correct.
his name outside of bit of a bummer for him, right? Like we've just signed the guy, comes in and Welbs is like on fire, but he isn't, and he's not playing him. And like for me, like if, as you say, if Dunk is dropped next weekend against Spurs and Boskagli plays, that's immediate brownie points for me. Like that's a stay of execution for at least 2 weeks for me. Like for Herzler, like I'm like, cool. He's identified something we've all identified as fans and think that that's something that should happen, and he's had the balls to do it. But if we're going to continue to throw away points to be sentimental and not risk upsetting the dressing room, like then I obviously have concerns around the dressing room atmosphere that's being cultivated and the manager's like decision making in throwing out his best 11. I haven't seen what that best 11 looks like, but yeah, I think my major like lack of patience here is that I really thought we were going to see a back three. Two things. I really thought we were going to see a back three in a true Herzler identity this season with every signing we made.
Yeah.
And I was really excited with three things, actually. One, this. I really thought we were seeing a Herzler identity going to come through. He kind of like trod water last year and was like, this is what we're building towards, and we're going to see St. Pauli Herzler this season. Seeing none of that. I feel like we're seeing a regression. Two, we had our biggest rivals ever win their first ever trophy, and I'm hungry to follow. Like, that's really big in the back of my head of like, this Palace team is shit and they're outperforming us. It's not acceptable. I want to do something too. And then three, now, it's always been my thing of, you can't just get rid of them. Like, who are you going to bring in then? Like, I said this last season where like Robin was a little bit done with her. So I was like, well, who are we bringing in then? Like, who are you picking? And ultimately, the truth is, there wasn't anyone, right? Because everyone who's good has a club, and you can't just bin them off. But now there's a giant Nuno-shaped human out there that could massively improve this team. Yes, he could. He absolutely could.
Oh, the Portuguese Houghton? No, I'm not. I don't want it.
He would make this team way better. He really would.
Despite everything I've ever said, I'm actually with Adam on this.
Nuno would make this team way better.
You said you wanted to watch fun football.
Yeah, not for me.
What's fun is winning games. And like, honestly, if we're playing the way we are and we're currently not playing fun football and not winning football games and not looking like winning football games, I'm willing to give up a little bit if I'm going to see us start winning football games and make Europe. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if he can take that Forest team to Europe and that Wolves team to Europe.
It's interesting.
No.
I think we probably won't have, I think you're right. We probably won't have this theory tested.
Oh, definitely not. No, not at all.
But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. If we talk about, just to sort of segue into something Stephen's mentioned, if we talk about people who have moved on from the Albion, the David Weir thing is quite interesting. I want to talk about this because it seems like we've got somebody else lined up, right? Who's going to come in this week?
Potato.
Yeah. But it does. We've talked about, Tony being very lenient with Sami Hyypiä back in the day. Is this something which shows that he is obviously clearly reasonably ruthless when it comes to this? Because this is not a departure that anyone saw coming. As much as we've had, there were comments of, certain aspects of the transfer window have been a bit bizarre in terms of players leaving, especially, and certain relationships within CISO and Buonanotte, etc., etc. Having said all of that, this was not a departure that everyone's gone, well, after the window we've had, I wouldn't like to be in David Weir's shoes, right? I've not seen anyone say that over the last few weeks, and yet we get this slightly left field departure, presumably because they've seen this guy available who they think would be better. Now, if Tony's prepared to do that for a very important position, which is technical director, is there a world where that same thing happens if he sees a manager available that he didn't think was going to be available?
Well,
do you see where I'm going with it? Does it make any sense?
My guess in this is that I feel like that might be more Barber's influence to move Weir on, whereas Tony would be the one more to dictate the manager piece. And that's just guesswork. But to me, also, Paul Barber seems way more cutthroat, and will just, you're not working out. But that position has also not been one that is, by hook or by crook, we've had a revolving door of various levels of executive and senior scouts and technical directors over the past few years. I think that's just kind of how it goes. But my guess is that's more Barber, but it is a guess. I don't know what you think, Josh.
I agree. I'm not sure Weir was ever being groomed to become the technical director. Like, that's my thing. Like, he kind of fell upwards, and I don't think he did a bad job as a loan manager. It sounds like we've had a lot of players go out on loan, and loads of them have done really well. So, like, it's not to say that he's failed upwards. He's just fell upwards by look, right? Like, because he's done a good job, and he was kind of the last man left standing from the Chelsea pillage. So it was like, great, like, you can step in and get it done. But it never felt like a permanent thing for David Weir to be that guy. But I posted this theory to you guys the other day, and Andy Naylor on X or Blue Sky or one of the social media channels, he was asked why he was let go by lots of fans. Like, Andy, why is he gone? And he said all will become clear in the near future, and he leaves with good relationship. Like, I just wonder if, one, this potato fella became available and we wanted him, and two, I just the theory that he's going to end up being able to move back to Scotland and take over the same role at Hearts is compelling to me.
It's compelling.
Or we had an agreement with Weir in the first place that if and when someone that we like becomes available, we will take them and allow you to go to Everton, because it's been pretty clear they've been after him for ages. But
yeah, he's turned them down a couple of times, I think, hasn't he?
But you would think that they would have already got that deal done, unless there's an agreed level of gardening leave there, which seems to be pretty common with these kind of roles. But
be about right, because I think he left Arsenal in May.
Well, let's also...
I'm intrigued to see where Weir goes, basically, after this, because it doesn't sound like he's left under a cloud at all, per Naylor. So...
for those that aren't aware of this news, we've kind of just talked about and thrown nicknames out, but this is Jason Ato coming in as new sporting director. So 40 years old. He was at Arsenal for a long time, over a decade, and was originally a scout and worked his way up. Didn't get the Arsenal job that became available, right? And then he was assistant to Edu originally, because he went to Forest. So sort of an odd man out in a couple of different spots, but seemingly they like this guy. This guy was also rumored to get the vacant seat in Newcastle too, and clearly he didn't get that one. But here we are, Jason Ato. It doesn't look like he's expected to start work at the South Coast Club in the next week, according to Athletic article. So
from what I could read, apparently he's very, very, very data driven, which presumably fits in with how we like to do things. But yeah, interesting appointment.
Yeah, Weir, you have to imagine Weir's was way more old school, right?
Yeah,
55-year-old bloke. He's probably doesn't have Excel. No clue. There's no way he was the right fit for that long term. Whereas you get this guy in, He's probably a bit more millennial age. He knows what's going on. He's got Football Manager fired up, the new one coming out. Loving it.
Yeah.
I do think that Weir is off somewhere specific, and it may end up being, as you say, Robin, it may end up being January he signs for someone. But I think that whenever that name comes out, it's going to be Hearts, it's going to be Everton, or it's going to be like someone big club Scottish adjacent, where we've kind of done this amicably of like, we know what's coming, you know what's coming, like let's do this. It works out for all parties. And
as Stephen in the chat said, I say he's a big Rangers, he's got a long connection with Rangers, hasn't he? So any of those, I'm with you. Any of those would be perfectly.
He may even be being poached for a Scottish FA job, right? Like you just don't know. But like I feel like wherever he's going to end up, I don't think it's going to be a massive down. I think it's going to make sense. I think you're going to be like, yeah, like this was like an intentional move from everybody involved. We talk a little bit about Dunk and like the player selection that we're seeing under Herzler. A player that was not seen as good enough to start or even be involved in the Brighton squad under Herzler started for Chelsea yesterday on loan, Facundo Buonanotte. What do we make of that? What do we like? Stephen in the chat that he was a little bit stunned. Me too, Stephen. Like I thought he was taken on loan as a bench warmer. Likewise, like I thought he was just this mega depth piece that was probably never going to be used outside of a couple of cup games. But after an international break, he's plopped straight in to the game.
It's really interesting. The way I would discuss it is probably, we had a discussion earlier in this episode about trying to fit Ruter and Gruder into the same 11, right? If you throw Facundo into that debate, what is the answer any different? Do you know what I mean? Does he then just supersede Gruder? Does he get in ahead of Ruter? Do you know what I mean? Like in a pure kind of numbers game, like where does he fit? I'm not suggesting. I agree with you. It's odd. I think it's strange given all of the attacking talent that Chelsea have signed over the summer. I'm with you and think it's a bit odd that he went straight in. But if he was still here in the squad, would any of our conversations be different?
Yeah, I can't imagine much. I mean, it's very clear. I know you talked about bench warmer, but he was left out of their Champions League squad for a reason. It's for when they play in the Champions League. It's for when the players have international breaks. You'll see Buonanotte play for Chelsea. He's a fresh pair of legs that they'll roll out, and they've got a fair few of them. They're also still bedding in players. Clearly not confident in starting Garnacho for 90 minutes. Palmer wasn't fully fit. And there's a few others that are still sort of getting to grips with Chelsea in general. But I mean, I don't think Buonanotte is the missing piece in this Brighton team. But that's my long story short.
It is the classic player that's not here would have made the difference, isn't it? I mean, we've seen this rolled out quite a few times. So I just don't say, I don't think, in my head at least, like I don't see, if he's in our squad, I don't see him immediately superseding Ruter or Gruder for me.
Or Gruder on the bench as his current.
I mean, you might have them. Say you might have them, but you might find a spot for both of them on the bench. But like I say, I know he played a lot of games in that second De Zerbi season. Obviously, scored some absolute bangers. But it would be a toss up for me between whether you'd want him or Gruder coming off the bench. I think by and large, like if Buonanotte's here, I still think Ruter gets in as the first choice number 10. And for me, at least, I'd be equally happy with either Gruder or Buonanotte.
It's a non-story for me. Like, I think it's a stupid loan for his perspective. I don't think it's that sensible a loan from our perspective, but from a player standpoint, the bench that we had yesterday was the least of our troubles. We had a really good bench yesterday. And the problem, it goes back to a question that Andy had, like, what's the timing of the subs was a little weird. We were limited because we had to do 2 subs in the first half for injuries, right? You guys had talked about this in our chat yesterday. by bringing off the Kuiper and Hinshelwood, you then were limited by the number of like substitution periods that you had, which is why the timing of the subs was more impacted in the second half. So, I mean, you brought on Baleba, Gruder, and Seamas, and you had Ayari and Kadioglu come on anyway. I don't think you would have made any difference in subs. You gave them 25 minutes to play out the football game, and it didn't happen. For me, that wasn't the problem, and Buonanotte certainly wasn't the solution to that problem either.
For the record, I don't think he was the solution at all either, but it is a bit weird to see him start for Chelsea and us have two Greeks that we have no interest in seemingly playing properly. I'd rather, like, I don't know why we didn't just loan them both out, like, and then keep him, like, who's clearly a more whatever. Just bizarre to me. Tottenham next, 3 wins and a loss for them. They've had a very good start under Thomas Frank. They did lose to Bournemouth, funnily enough as well, and then stomped on West Ham and Burnley to start the season and beat City as well, which seems to be just the Spurs way, right? Like, they seem to be a proper bogey team for them. But they are a very good side under Thomas Frank, as you would expect. 8 goals, 1 conceded, which was the one against Bournemouth. Pretty classic 4-3-3. Everyone's favorite player to play against at Brighton, Paulinho, is playing for them and making a pretty good impact. Kudus, ex-Brighton target as well. Richarlison, a lot of players that are just...
Xavi Simons was their big signing, who just came in this weekend as well.
Which looked really good, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, so I'll say something maybe potentially controversial here, is I think Spurs are actually quite shit at the moment. And I think their deficiencies have been hidden by a very weak set of teams that they've played. And I know I'm including Manchester City in saying weak set of teams here, but Burnley are broadly crap, even though against Liverpool they're all right. City, we know they've been playing bizarre football. I mentioned the stats of the Spurs game against Bournemouth the other day. Now, if you're talking Herzler out after this Bournemouth game, go and look at the stats when Spurs played Bournemouth. Do you think the Spurs fans were saying Thomas Frank out? They had 0.19 XG against Bournemouth. Bournemouth had 20 shots to Spurs' 5 shots. This was at Spurs' ground. This was the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Tragic, awful performance. And then they got the privilege of being able to play West Ham at the West Ham running stadium library. I think this team is nowhere near as good as being on 9 points with 8 goals scored and 1 goal conceded. My only hesitation is that Thomas Frank generally has been a pain in the ass to play against at Brentford. And whether we see Thomas Frank's setup here and his ability that we saw at Brentford, or whether we see Spurs being Spurs, in which case I actually fancy us for this game. I don't believe in this Spurs team at this present moment.
And it's another game that last year was 3 points, right? So if we're keeping the log of comparable games to last season,
yeah,
it's
but
another one that was 3 last year.
Do you remember that game?
Yeah, we were 2-0 down at half time.
It was absolutely that was some. The blood pressure went up in that one.
Yeah, but it's another example of it comes back to a point earlier, which is, it's another example of where we were able to turn it on for 45 minutes, but looked incredibly terrible for the first 45 minutes. So, like I say, who knows what we're going to get? But, if we are going to look at it purely from a stats point of view, it is a game where, you don't necessarily want to fall further behind the comparison versus games from last season table, which granted isn't the most important one, but it is a decent barometer of progression or lack of, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, they've got Villarreal in the middle of the week as well. Spurs do. At home, I don't think they have. Yeah, they're at home, so they don't have to travel. But that's still an extra game that they're going to have to put their players out for. It certainly isn't one that they can throw a bunch of reserves out for either. Like, it's not a team that you can kind of cruise by like some random, Azerbaijani Premier League team where you can kind of get away with it. Like, they've got to figure it out. So if they want to win those games, they've got to play a decent squad, and then come and play a decent squad against us as well. So it will be interesting to see how that's worked. Frank's never worked through Europe either, right? Like this is his first go at that as well. So that'll be interesting to see how we work. Like I obviously hope we do get a result, because if we're convincingly beaten by them at the Amex, then the conversation rebounds right back at Adam's statement of they've been lucky to play crap teams. Well, where are we sat in that list if we don't at least make a pretty convincing performance, right? Like we've had a week's rest, we're at home, and we're playing a team that have definitely played quite a few poor teams. If we don't perform well, then you've got to worry that we're in amongst them. And Stephen in the chat, his big concern right now is Bart changing away from that orange kit because he looks like a giant tin of tango. So I mean that's also a fair concern, I think.
Can you? What do you think our international listeners think a tin of tango means?
It's a good point. Yeah.
Because that one doesn't really translate in any capacity.
Just don't translate it. Just
yeah,
leave it hanging.
We'll
just
leave it out there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're an hour 20 in now. And I mean, would you like to do a man of the match for the Bournemouth game, fellas?
Minte.
Agreed.
Minte or Ruta. Probably Minte.
Yeah, I don't think that's because Ruta played poorly. I think Minte just looks a little bit better. Stephen in the chat talking about the penalty yesterday as well. For what it's worth, everything pointed to the fact that he actually dove the right way.
He did. He went the right way, yeah.
He went the way that his bottle would have told him to go, and every experienced penalty saver would have told him to go. He went the way
bottle of tango
that Semenyo was supposed to shoot. He just didn't. So, like, what can you do? It is what it is.
But for everyone though that's down on the penalty thing, just wait, because one day he'll save one day, and what a monumentous occasion that will be. But you know what will happen? He'll save it and he'll just rebound at the striker's feet, and he'll just
that'll be what will happen. It's
also
also
we'll go through a phase where he'll save one and then never let one in for like 3 months.
Yeah.
Where
but the other thing is, I know
Martinez.
it's become something we talk about, but goalkeepers do statistically save a lot less penalties individually than people think they do.
I mean, it's quite hard. It's quite hard.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that go, oh, he's not saved for ages. And it's like, well, I think David James has got the most number of like penalty saves in Premier League history, which I think is like 13 or something. But you look at like the number of games, like if you divide it by the number of games, like it doesn't happen that, like, to be boring, it doesn't happen as much as people's like sort of vitriol would suggest it should.
I mean, you only have to watch that Man United versus game in the cup where it went to like 10,000 penalties. That was enough for me to look and basically say, yeah, that's probably quite hard to save. Well, that was a Nana.
Massive Grimsby, by the way.
Grimsby, thank you. Yeah, sorry. I had a moment where I forgot their name, which, whatever. Yeah, I think this Spurs game is going to be important as the last point, so we can actually shut up here and let people get on with their lives. This Spurs game, all games are important, but this Spurs game is a particular one of importance because Herzler clearly is already losing parts of the fan base. The fact that we spent a lot of this episode talking about Herzler. If you lose against Spurs, it's looking ugly, like you said. You're probably going to be around 15th or 16th in the table after 5 games. That's not good. Just for those of you that unfamiliar with football and league tables. So it doesn't get that much easier, right? Your next league game is Chelsea. So this Spurs game is a winnable game that I really think at home, 3 points as against a side that's played in Europe midweek. You've got to get it.
And then you've got, if you then don't get that, you've then got the kind of slight banana skin of Wolves, right? Who haven't made a great start to the season, and you then go into that game needing a win.
Wolves away, where they've lost every single game probably up until that point. Guaranteed loss for us. Guaranteed.
That's what I mean.
We're
it's
still
not
sat on 4 points after Wolves. The pressure and outcry from this fan base will be enormous.
Yeah, I don't think there's any. He doesn't have enough credit in the bank, Herzler, to have a run as horrendous as a couple of the runs that we had. Look, if that Forest game that happened last year happens somewhere in the next 3 to 4 games, I think he's done for. Because then you start to get shades of Hasenhüttl, Southampton.
Yeah, you do.
That's
a horrible thing to say, but you're right.
Yeah, it is. But you do.
All right, on that positive note.
I was going to say that the final thing I was going to say is I think the only thing that makes it all slightly different this year is that generally the caliber of the promoted teams that have come up, they are performing better than would be expected. So it doesn't give you the necessary free hit. I mean, I'm not suggesting we're going to go down for a minute, right? But the fact that you've got 3 promoted teams who right now you could make a case for all of them surviving. It does make the division. You don't have that safety net of going, oh, there's 3 terrible teams, right? We don't really need to worry about it. Does that make any sense? It doesn't give you the innate safety net. Like I say, I'm not suggesting we're going to be bottom 5, like in the latter stage of the season, but it doesn't give you the ability to go, oh, like that's completely, it's just not going to happen.
It's all right. Manchester United seem they're going to finish below us based on what I'm currently witnessing. So, do you know what's funny? After all of this, watch us get European football, and we'll just go on an incredible run. It hurts to look like a genius because that's football. That's how Brighton operate. We just need to see something in the Spurs game.
Well, I think that's it, right? We need to see an identity, I think, is the key here, because as much as we hate them, Palace started off dog shit last year. And
awful.
But they knew what Glasner was trying to do. They just didn't like the way he was trying to do it, and they didn't like what was going on. And he got the players bought in, and he got them bought into the identity. We're over a year in, and we still don't know what the identity is. So, Herzler needs to figure it out. If he doesn't, he's not going to get a chance to, I don't think, because there's nothing there. So we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on the relegation stuff. For me, Wolves are looking cooked already. I know that you're not supposed to say anything until 10 games into the season, but oh my goodness, they look bad. Villa are not going to be down there, right? I think we can all say that we'll be very shocked if Villa end up in that bottom 5 or 6, even though the fact that they haven't scored a goal yet is genuinely one of the funniest Premier League things going at the moment.
That is shocking, isn't it? If you wear claret, you are not happy at the moment. 17th, 18th, and 19th.
City are not staying down there, obviously, and Leeds and Forest, I think, will be, and Brentford will be as well. So, I think you can look at this group and go Wolves, West Ham, Burnley, Leeds, Forest, Brentford, and Sunderland, because they've had a great start, but the reality is something's going to hit.
They've had a reasonably easy. They've had a pretty. They've had West Ham, Burnley, Brentford, Palace. In their first 4, which I think is
you missed out Manchester United. Honestly,
have you just seen the 3rd goal?
Yeah.
They lost
signed
the ball
Lewis
and they had no one in their own half. Just they have not got. They are that is writing checks that they are nowhere near rich enough to be cashing.
Well, because they'd also, I think they just brought Maguire on. Of all the situations. Maguire on the halfway line trying to catch up with Haaland is probably not where you want to be. Amorim, he's got to be. The managerial changes, it's just impending, right? It's just a matter of when.
Ruben Angerim today. Tell you that defending is absolutely shocking. It is genuinely Angesk. It looks like it's a Postecoglou-led Man United.
You've literally left your entire team in the opposition half when you're 2-0 down.
How long does Ange last under Marianakis, by the way, before he starts? It's only so long that little Greek connection will matter
hold
before he takes him back, because Forest ain't going to like the look of how that's shaping. And how does Ange operate in a side that's currently in 15th at time of recording, has played defensive football, is now going to come out, play European football and attacking football, Who knows how that one's going to go? I think they're the biggest wild card now this season.
It's
Forest.
really bizarre, isn't it? Because it's a really weird time to do it because you've waited until literally the transfer window's closed and he can't get in anyone that he would actually specifically want. It's a really odd time to do it. So I'm with you.
I think
It'll
he
be
wanted
fascinating to
Ange.
watch.
I think he wanted Ange.
Yeah.
He wants that, quote, back to your point, the exciting football, and he's Greek. What more can Marinakis want?
But then why did he not do it? Why did he not do it in the summer then?
Because he's a bloody gigantic idiot.
Anyway.
I think there is that part, yeah. Like quite a major part of the puzzle here is Marinakis is an absolute clown. All right, we will be back next week for episode 300, fellas. And I pray to God it's a good one. We will be, chatting Spurs and whatever else comes from that. So have a good week, everybody. The weather here is absolutely terrible, so I hope it's better wherever you are listening from. And yeah, there's a lot of European football midweek as well, so we'll see how some of these teams begin to adapt to a couple of pretty busy weeks for them and how the Albion can hopefully take advantage of it. So we will be back next Sunday and have a wonderful week.
Up the Villarreal. Cheers all.